Hi everyone, my name is Kendrick and welcome to ENFP Mail. Today I get to interview Kim. So Kim, welcome.
Welcome. Woo! Why am I saying welcome? It's your show. Hi.
Well, you have high play, so it's all good. So Kim, can you tell us your full type, please?
All right. My full type is double masculine, Te-Si, blast, play, consume, sleep forth.
So you are the most extroverted ESTJ type, and you are the same type as Ed Milet. Is
That's
that?
correct. And Dale die.
Oh, okay. I didn't know Dale Dye was the most extroverted also. But what did you think, and how did you feel when you got your typing results back?
Ooh, okay, so most of it I was pretty confident about because after being in the class for like nearly a year, I felt pretty confident on every part. The only part I got wrong was the sensory because I thought I was the same type as Tony Robbins because I kept seeing activated play, sleep last, and masculine sensory. So I'm like, oh, that has to be SE. SI didn't even come in the picture for me because it was like, I didn't think I had SI because I'm like, I'm horrible at it. Like I can't SI. And then she got back my type. She's like, yeah, Shan told me about it. She's like, yeah, you almost got all of it right except your TESI. Like that for me was so hard, except the first that I was SI. And I was like, no, I'm not, because I never really viewed myself as controlling, like especially compared to everyone in my family. I'm like, I feel like I'm the disruptor in my family. Like, no way. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Like, no. Like, yes, you NE all day long, but what do you do it for? You do it so you have your details organized. And when you do organize things, it's yes, SI is hard in terms of doing SI things for myself, but if it's doing SI for the tribe, oh, that's second to none.
Oh, I see. I see. So SI with the FI is the challenge, but SI for the TE, it's fine. It's actually the best. You're
Oh,
the
that's
best.
easy because it's double masculine and at the top. So very easy for me to be like, this is what needs to be done. This is the information. This is how it's going to be delivered. Before we move to step B, does everyone understand it can execute step A? Yes, move on. No, let me break it down even further so that everyone can really understand it.
Okay. Let's dive deep into that first part then, since we're already in that topic. So let's talk about your double masculine ST blast. How do you experience it? And tell us about the good stuff about it and the bad stuff about it.
Right. I think probably the thing that's most noticeable to people is the responsibility for clarity. It it's very direct. It's a very direct type of blast where it's like yes or no. Is this happening? What is happening? It's very focused on what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's very much a drill. It feels very drill sergeant like. And until I really looked at myself, I never realized how clear I actually am in terms of speaking or teaching, because I want to make sure that when I really explain something, I explain every single part of it. So in terms of pro, I'm very easy to understand. People can follow me very easily. I speak very clearly. People also know what to expect with me. I'm not the type of person who's you're going to have to second guess yourself and be like, what does she really want? Or what does she really, no, like if I'm upset with you, you'll know. If I think something's done correctly or incorrectly, you'll know. Like I don't beat around the bush in terms of that because I feel like I can't. But the downside is that it absolutely, if that aggression or that oomph around things need to be clear, when you don't explain that to other people saying, hey, I feel responsible to make things clear, or I'm sorry that I may come off more aggressively than I mean to, it's just I really care about you and I really care about getting this thing done. It's
Right.
going to yeah, I know it's going to come across as very belligerent, controlling, aggressive, domineering, and at times suffocating.
So have you, since you figured that out and you learn that that's like the effect it's causing, have you kind of started explaining to them why you're doing something just to soften the blow, I guess?
Oh, it's taken me years from people telling me, "Oh, you're making me feel like I'm being backed into a corner," for me to realize, okay, like this is not the right approach. Like there's absolutely a time and a place for that, but
Yeah.
most situations that's not the case for it. And I always let people know now. It's like, hey, just if I say something that sounds harsh, 90% of the time I don't mean it to come out the way that I do. So if you're questioning, or if you're misinterpreting what I'm saying, please let me know. And I'll be happy to clarify that for you.
Gotcha. So since we're on the topic now of, giving reasons, talk about your anti-play. That's your second savior.
Oh, and he's fun. I could Eddie all day. That's another thing that really hit me too. What solidified my type for me was I was watching other double masculine plays, and I'm like, I am not that aggressive in terms of how the tribe is going to be engaged, where the conversation is going to go. I'll be aggressive in terms of everybody, let's go. We're all doing this thing. We're all going to like throw balloons and juggle bowling pins together. Like I'm very much aggressive on that end. But in terms of the physical thing that we're doing, I'm very much like, we're going to go over here and we're going to go over here and we can do this and all these million things that could be done. It's very much like I can go down this like nerdum rabbit hole where I'll like start at one place and have no idea how I ended up at like, it's almost like I almost feel like my play is like broken telephone. Like it's a game where you whisper a word to one person and you have to whisper to another person what you think you heard. So you'll maybe start with like banana, and then through the broken telephone you might end up with like acorn. It very much feels like that.
Your next part is double feminine consume. What is that like? That's very fascinating. It's a demon, but it's third, so you can use it.
It sometimes feels like a demon for how movable it is. Like it's not the hardest thing in the world for me to do in terms of actually like gathering in the information. Like that part of it's not harder for me. But it's hard for me to just take in information just for the sake of me taking information and not wanting to. If I listening to a video and I hear a bunch of like World of Warcraft facts, for me to be like, I've heard all these facts, instead of actually taking them in and absorbing for myself, let me go annoy my whole household. Hey, did you learn that this? Hey, did you learn that this? And then I'll blast play the facts to people and be like teaching them this and be like, what do you think could happen? Or what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? Or what if this happened instead of this? Like it's very much like when I do collect information for myself, it's very
Well, what
nothing to hold on to.
what about if you're trying to do something that's like fun for yourself or enjoyable for yourself? Is it like, because it's double feminine, right? So is it when you go to the consume mode and you want to consume something, are you like very girly about it? Like kind of like asking the tribe, are you
Yes.
asking the tribe for permission first? Like you're like, oh, it's like, oh, is that okay if I can have that candy? Or like, are you like, and like,
very shyly and be like, hey, is it okay if I do this? Like I'll have the double like I go from like this like you better do this and this needs to be
yeah,
to
yeah,
is it okay if I do this? Do you mind if I do this?
yeah,
Hey, I like this. What do you like? Like the Ed Sheeran, I have feelings too. Just like very small.
yeah. I've always found that so fascinating with like people with that double masculine sexual modalities, because they'll go in this like swing where they're like really aggressive and like shoving everyone and like bossing everyone around, and then like suddenly they'll swing and they'll like be so super feminine and like girly and like, oh, like it's like I was like, what happened? Like,
Oh, for sure. It's very much a protective kind of measure because we see, believe it or not, we see the tribe as scary.
yeah,
Even though we're the ones like running them all over the bulldozer, we see the tribe being scary, and we see ourselves being very small and sensitive on the inside.
right,
So we feel like we need to compensate for that little girl or that little boy or that little child on the inside and just shove and be like, I'm gonna build 50,000 walls just so you don't see that little girl in there, not knowing that the walls are made of like straw and they're not very sturdy, and
and there's a door, it's already open.
there could be a door. I don't know. It's feminine consumed. There's a door. There may not be.
Well, I mean, what about like close family members? So, you can make a wall, right? But they're already inside the wall because they're your family or your close friends, right?
True.
So like how do they see you then, like once they actually know you?
Oh, like see me as a very, believe it or not, when I'm not in a blaster mode, I'm very easygoing, very
Right.
laid back, very go with the flow. Like I'll do it. Like, what do you guys want to do? And like very caring.
Yeah.
But they understand that it comes like the tough love comes from a place of I wouldn't be as tough on you as I am if I didn't care about you because I want better for you.
Right. That makes sense. Um, what about the last animal here, the sleep? That's the like
Oh,
we both have the same problem here, right? The SF sleep last.
yeah. It's a
So
blast. Is
how
this?
do you experience that SF sleep last right there?
Ooh, okay. So it's a nightmare because like when I think I've processed, it's almost like for me fighting a war on two fronts because on one front it's the I think I've processed everything, I think I let everything go, but the masculine SI savior is like, no, you haven't. And it's like trying to let the detail go, and it's like I'm responsible to remember every detail, the good, the bad, like every aspect of something. I'm responsible to hold on to it. Like I'm not ready to let this go. It's like an animalistic, like I'm not ready to let it go, even though I know it's what makes the most sense for me and I would feel better about it. At times it's like the masculine sensory is like overriding it, being like, you are going to hold on to this because I can't let this detail go.
What about things that you value inside, with that SF? Like, what do you SF value um, in life or in general? Like, do
Mm.
you have a, let's start with that, and then I have
All
follow-up
right,
questions.
what do I like and value? All right. I like a myriad of things. I love music. I love sports. I love nerdy things. I like uh, I like some aspects of school. I like to cook. I like fitness and all that jazz. I like warm weather. I like my cats. Um, I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, no, it's good. You started getting more specific the longer you made the list, so that's good.
It's always that first one that's very hard for me to answer. It's like, I don't know where to start.
Well, I remember in the Facebook group, I once made a poll like, okay, guys, tell me what your FI, like I said, specifically EJs. I want more EJs or someone with demon FI. Tell me what is in your FI bucket list, you know? And like, my favorite are the ones that are like super specific. So like one guy said like, I want to have a penguin. I'm like, okay, that is, it doesn't get any more FI than that. I want a penguin, you know? And everyone's like, yeah, that's FI right there. Like penguin,
I
So
like penguins.
so do you have anything specific like FI that is like uniquely like it could be weird, but it's like
Oh,
you
I love manatees. I love manatees because
okay,
these
there you go.
penguins. Like, I love manatees because they're called underwater sea cows, but they're technically look more like elephants than they do cows, and they're so like they're over a ton, but they're really gentle and very cute. I love
Right.
manatees.
So from the sound of your voice, it sounds to me like you really like animals too. Like
I do. I love animals.
yeah. What kind of animals do you like?
Ooh, okay. I love dogs,
Yeah.
especially like big dogs. Like I've always made a bucket list of dogs that I really want, and it's a black lab,
Yeah.
a Newfoundland, and a Rottweiler.
Oh, nice.
Because I like those like big dogs that it's like tough on the outside but really mush balls. I love that. I love that. I love cats. I have two cats.
Yeah.
What else do I love? I also love penguins and I love tigers.
Yeah.
And what other sort of things do I like? See, I said four and then it's like it kind of tapers off.
The kind of dogs that you like is the same personality as you, eh? That's kind of interesting. Like,
Yeah.
tough on the outside, but like um sensitive and mushy inside,
Yeah, I
Uh,
love that. Where it's like very much the tough love and strict and needs to know
yeah.
your life A to Z and very structured and all that.
So it's kind of interesting because at the start when I asked you about the pros and cons about double masculine blast, you said that you can come across as a drill sergeant, which is very much
Mhm.
like what's his name again, Dale Dye.
Yep.
Um, so you have these two people, Dale Dye and Ed Milet. They're exactly the same type, but one of them is not growth mindset. Dale Dye is completely fixed mindset. He doesn't want to work on his FI.
Hmm.
He doesn't want to work in a sleep last. Like his way of coping with emotions is a thumbs up, which is pretty
Hmm.
sad in my opinion. But
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you have Ed Milet who goes into the interview with like impact theory, and literally like within like the first few sentences he tells Tom Bilyeu, I am insecure. I'm like, oh my god, that is like That is super growth mindset. That is like that
Yeah.
gave me goosebumps. Like the fact that you are like this tough guy and you openly tell everyone that you're insecure.
Mhm.
That is the bravest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So like, how do you how do you see yourself in the journey right now? With the personal growth and working on your fourth function, the FI. Do you see yourself, like putting more effort to work on that FI, like to do things for yourself, keeping the promises that you make yourself essentially. Like how's your journey been with that?
I've watched Ne+Te's class over 5 times. Like when I first watched the class, I'm like, wow, I really like this guy. Like it'd be so cool to be his type, and I ended up being his
Yeah, you are
type.
you are him, except for girl.
Yes, but what I loved the most about Ed was just him saying like, I feel like I was like talking about being born very insecure, and him saying I feel like I was born at birth with more insecurities than almost anybody, and how much he really had to work on building the promises for himself and the confidence. And that's been so inspiring to me, because I try to make a list of like 3 to 5 promises to myself each day, like, okay, do these sorts of things for self-care to make yourself feel good, not to make anybody else feel good, but to make yourself feel good. And I've watched the Dale Dye and Ed Milet class like one after another to see like, okay, at one point, yes, I was like this. At one point I was very much keep my feelings to myself, don't share them with anybody, almost viewed like sharing too much emotions as weak, which it's not. It's actually strong for you to show how you're feeling and to let it all out. It takes a lot of strength. And it's something I'm still working on and fighting on internally, because my body is like, no, I don't want to share this right now. Like I almost feel like a visceral, like I don't want to share this, but it's like, you have to. You have to, because it's going to make yourself feel better, not because it's going to validate anybody else, not because like you feel like people are going to be proud of you, or not to escape the feeling that you feel like you're going to disappoint people, but because you have to do it for yourself, because you can't keep getting yourself in the same toxic cycle of bottling it up, bottling up, bottling up. You explode 3 months later and just absolutely fall apart. Like you, like setting that standard for myself of I don't want to repeat that as often.
Yeah, I think as an EJ, it's super hard to lead with that FI. Like I have it in a demon state. I am a double decider, so I'm a little bit lucky in that sense. But I can see that for you it's going to be a lot harder because it's feminine FI, right? So
Mhm.
like a few days ago, I made a video for my birthday, and I actually drove like further away because I didn't want anyone to see me like making a vlog about myself. I felt so weird about it. Like I felt like self-conscious and like really weird. And I'm like, okay, I don't want anyone to look at me when I make this
Yeah.
video. Like I'm like, so I parked somewhere right farther away in like a more industrial area, by the river. I'm like, okay, here we go, time to make this video. And then like as I'm in the middle of my making my video, I see people start parking beside me. I'm like, what the fuck, and then I see them like peeking. Like, like they're like looking at me, like kind of like curious, like what is this guy doing, right? And then,
Right.
and I swear there was like one guy who looks like an EJ, with like the box shaped face. He's like looking at me with a judgmental look, and I'm like, oh fuck you. And then like, and like, and like, and then like I'm like, no, no, I need to stay the course. I said to myself, I'm gonna finish this video about
Make a
myself,
promise to yourself saying you're gonna make this
about
video.
myself, which is like I feel uncomfortable doing it, but it's the right thing to do. So I'm gonna go do this because I actually wanted to do it for me.
Right.
So I just felt so uncomfortable. It was like so.
Oh, I get it. I'd feel like I used to feel embarrassed when I was still very much in my own darkness. When people would cry in public, I'd feel embarrassed. I could be like, oh, like too much. But now it's like, okay, you're having a tough time. Like
Yeah.
I have to. It's helping. So like working on my FI has really helped me work on FE. Like I don't have FE. That wouldn't surprise anybody. But it's really helped me because I used to have the hardest time like help like listening to other people share their emotions and their values and going back and forth and all of that, because I eventually got in the mindset of, if you don't understand yourself and if you don't know what you like or your value, what you're feeling, how are you really going to help somebody else when they're in a tough state and they don't know what they're feeling? Like how are you going to FE properly if you don't FI? So it's like in that sense, it's sort of like I use the flip the DE back on itself. And what's really helped is telling myself, okay, let's say you're somebody else for a second. What would you tell that person? And I guarantee you, you're going to be a lot nicer, a lot more understanding, a lot more patient, and a lot more forgiving with that person. Then why don't you hold that same standard for yourself?
Right. Right. That's a good one. That's a good point. Yeah, the empathy too is powerful. It's a powerful tool.
Oh,
Uh,
for sure.
yeah, I've always been jealous of the IPs in a way that like they're so brave that they can just do whatever they want, in front of like the public. Like I'll give you an example. Like, I like to make videos, right? So when I see them like go in like a crowd and they're like vlogging, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't have the balls to do that. That's so like when I feel so weird doing that. I mean,
Mhm.
I can see that they're making an ass of themselves. They look like they look stupid, but at the same time, like, hey, you know what? Good for you. You're just doing what you want to do, and guess what? Those people are gonna go home. They're gonna forget about you, and no one's gonna
Right.
remember, and everyone's gonna go through their day. And guess what? You still got that thing that you wanted to get. So, but I'm like, yeah, I mean, obviously, logically, it makes sense, but emotionally, it's still hard to do. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, have you ever been in that kind of situation where like there's something that you really wanted to do, or but then you like felt like really like insecure or shy about it because like, oh, there's so many people looking. Like I wish no one was looking. Like
Oh, all the time. Like, if it's like trying to, like, if I'm in like in a group conversation that's about emotional stuff, I don't know what to do. Like, that's still like such a hard area for me. Like, I've been getting better at it because I've learned. I'm like, okay, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to want the logical advice. And I know it's going to feel good for you, but it's not going to feel good for them. And you're trying to get your own selfish need of, let me help you, let me help you, let me help you. It's very weird because it's like, I'm selflessly selfish in that kind of way of like, let me help you. And it's like, wait a minute, you may not want the kind of help that I'm going to
right,
provide you. And whatnot. So it's like, I'd feel embarrassed when everyone else is like sharing back and forth of, oh, let me, like, I feel this, I feel that, blah, blah, blah. And I would just give 3 pats on the shoulder and be like, you're going to be okay. Like, you can do this. And just stares at the floor for the rest of the conversation. Like, all right, I just completely embarrassed myself. Like, I don't know how to come back from this.
you just ruined the vibe.
I don't realize that's the thing is like, I never realized how much I was like, number one, unaware of the vibe, or
Right.
number two, just completely killed it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's important to like feel out the vibe. Be like, okay, is this a logical talk or emotional talk? Because if it's then you got to communicate the language that's being spoken at the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's been tough because it's like it's at times where people have questioned like how much I care about, like it's funny because I'd stress so much about like I need to help this person, I need to help this person, but the way I'd be trying to help them, it almost makes them ask like, does she really care about me?
Right.
Does she really, like, I've been called like invalidating before, and
Right.
it's like, oh, like I'm like, oof, that hurt
Well,
because it's
that
like,
cuts.
yeah, I'm like, I really do care. I know it sometimes, most of the time, it doesn't come off that way, but I really do care. I'm not the best at showing it most of the time,
Right.
but I do care and I'm working on it.
So, I had a question for you. Just flew out of my head. Damn, that last SI, so annoying. My SI always flies away. Like when I need it the most. Um, okay, so my question was actually in regards to. Oh, you're right. I remember now. So, you earlier you were talking about like, you know, the person might not necessarily want your advice, but you give unsolicited advice.
Mhm.
Um, have you noticed that you have kind of caught yourself doing that, and you're kind of like holding yourself back now because you realize, okay, you know what, this is not the time for this. This advice is not, first of all, it's not what this person wants. Second of all, um, they probably just want my presence. They just want someone to listen. They don't want like a problem solver.
Mhm.
They want someone to share emotions with, like Brene Brown
Absolutely.
style. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've really tried to work on that and only giving advice when I'm explicitly asked, hey, what do you think I should do in this circumstance? Or what is the most logical thing to do here? Like if someone's specifically asking me, help me with the ST, I'm like, perfect. But I've been trying to phrase it more as if someone's having a tough time, just being like, hey, like instead of hounding with a bunch of questions like, do you need this? Do you need that? You need this? Do you need that? Because that can overwhelm a person. It's saying like, hey, like, let me know what you need, but I'm here for you. So it's like I don't throw unsolicited advice on people, but I still feel like I'm helping in some way.
I think you saying I'm here for you could be, I feel like it's more powerful than any other advice you could ever give them. Like
Oh,
sometimes,
absolutely.
yeah,
I'm learning that sometimes less words is more.
right. Yeah, it's hard with your blast play, right? Because you're gonna be like a machine gun. and
Seriously.
and you're also sleep blast, right? So you have the same problem as me and other sleep blast people, where like you just don't stop. You're just like,
No.
like, um. So since we're talking about sleep blast, talk about setting boundaries. So for me, I have a sleep blast, and I think since the pandemic, that's kind of like what I've been practicing is setting boundaries with people, like knowing like, okay, this person's toxic. I shouldn't spend time with this person. I've even cut off some people that I grew up with, like friends that I grew up with since I was 13 years old, and it doesn't feel good. I didn't want to do it, but I felt like it's something that I have to do for myself. And it is what it is. So have you noticed, or have you noticed that setting boundaries is always something that has been challenging for you?
Yes, absolutely. It's always been hard in the sense of like, oh, just what it's like the meme that you hear, like, oh, one more video, 3 a.m., you're still going. It's very much that type of thing. So it's like trying to, like, even for me, who's masculine SI savior, that is still hard for me to be like put on the brake.
Right.
That's still very hard for me. So having to learn to, especially because like I've had to learn to do this with my bedtime because I have a very hard shocker. I have insomnia. I've had since I was 14. So I've had to specifically like time my sleep meds like 2 to 3 hours before I am going to go to bed. So I set a timer of like, okay, you need to take your meds by this time in order to go to bed by this time, or you need to write 5 things that you have processed, haven't processed, things you like, things you don't like. Just get it all out. Just no judgment. Like you don't have to share with anyone, or if you do share, maybe share with 1 or 2 people. Like peacock FE for a little bit. But I've noticed that I've had to cut some bad, like not bad, but just like people out that we were at different places in our lives, or cut out things that weren't healthy for me, that weren't working for me, that like very much so. The pandemic is it's one good like positive out of the pandemic. There's not much, but it's really helped me look at myself in a much more objective manner.
Yeah, Dave said that the pandemic put the whole world into sleep mode. It's like kind of felt like it was something that was needed almost. Like
Yeah, for
we're
sure.
always go go go, and now there's this time for rest, time for break, time for reflection, which I think is very important. Um, you have a masculine SI. Do you find that your personal belongings to be personal?
Yeah. That's why it's so hard for me. Like, if it's letting things go, letting people go, letting memories go, that's so hard for me because my SI is like, no, that's mine. Whether it's good or bad, it's like, no, it's mine.
What about like your personal belongings? Like if you were to loan someone something, like how are you like apprehensive when it comes to loaning people like some of your belongings?
Yeah, I'm like, you insist you give it. Like, I remember 6th grade, this kid in my class like would always ask for a piece of paper, and I started to keep track of the amount of pieces of paper that he borrowed from me until the end of the year, where I said, all right, you owe me around 178 pieces of paper. So I still didn't realize I was masculine SI savior at that
Right.
point. Because
What did the kids say? I'm curious.
yeah, I'm just like, the kid's just like, okay, I'll have it to you by the end of the year.
Did you get it?
I did.
Okay.
I reminded him every day.
That's funny. That's so funny. Your masculine PE, do you feel confident when it comes to, you know, trying to help the tribe of what will work for the tribe? Like, do you feel confident at like, I guess, troubleshooting for them or problem solving for them?
Time. I feel like some of the time it's this false sense of confidence of like, I may not have the answer, but I feel responsible to just jump in and help you and try to find some kind of answer or some kind of solution or give you some type of closure or clarity or whatever it may be. But like sometimes it's confident. If it's an area that I'm comfortable in, I'm like, oh yeah, like jump in. I know what I'm talking about. I feel confident here. I own that. Like this is what I do. It's part of who I am. Like da 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 da. But if it's an area that I'm not so don't know too much about, or I haven't prepared enough about, like in terms of like not knowing enough information about it, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel obligated to help you, but I don't want to give you the wrong information. It's tough.
Your TE is double activated. So how much are you abusing that TE with a double activated TE?
When am I not abusing it is the real question. I'm catching myself more than I ever have. It's still being like, what do you think? What do you think? It's like, I'll still do the runaround thing where if someone asks me, what do you want to do? I'm like, I'm thinking of this. What do you think? Just immediately pinging. It's so hard for me not to ping back to other people. Be like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Does this make sense? Does that make sense? Does this make sense? Everyone around me knows, like, oh, I'm incredibly indecisive. Like, I know that about myself. Like, oh my goodness, like, yes, I know I'm indecisive because I'm constantly like, what do you like? Does this make sense for you? Does this make sense for you? Would this make you happy? And everyone's like, dude, what do you want?
Okay, well, since we're in this topic, let's talk about that. So you're a single decider, so you can make a decision for the tribe, but you can't make a decision for yourself. So
yes.
like how does that play out? Like have you ever made a decision for yourself? Like for example, like you're watching a movie and then all your friends said, nope, point at you. You have to pick the movie we're gonna watch, and we have to watch what you like. Not what I want or other people want, but what you want. Like how.
Oh God.
We have 5 minutes because you know the tickets are selling out.
Time crunch. Okay.
And it has to be something you like, not because so you know.
Probably take 4 minutes, like giving the honest answer. I'm still trying to work on this, but I'd probably take like 3 to 4 minutes being like, well, this person likes this type of movie, and this person likes this type of movie, but I happen to like this type of movie, but this person doesn't like this type of movie, but I like this type of movie. But what would they think of this? Like I'd go back and forth on that game for a little bit until finally shyly saying, I want to watch this.
That's funny. And you're like so meek about it, right? Like so.
Is everyone? And then asking, are you okay with that?
You know, it's funny. One time I went to watch a movie with 2 IPs.
Oh, geez.
And one IP won over the other, and my other IP friend was so upset that he lost, and I'm like, oh, like it's like 2 people are like the selfish IP type, and they both want what they want, and then I was like, oh, geez, you know, this is it's a weird situation because yeah. But for you it's the opposite. Like you're like, you pick, you know, like.
Like, okay, I'll go, because I'm very much like, oh, if it's something I haven't seen, like, oh, I'll give it a try, whatever. It's like, oh, I'm obligated to go along, like, oh, go along with here, or oh, should we do this? And yeah, I like that, or oh, I'll give that a try. Like, I'm always willing to give like almost any movie a try.
Yeah.
But when it's like, what do you want? I'm like, what? I have to share that. It's my movie. I'll keep it to myself.
But when you're by yourself though, do you know the kind of stuff that you want to consume?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because you don't have it last, right? It's a demon.
No, I don't have it last. It just feels like it's last because it's double feminine.
Right. So yeah, so that's what I've been seeing now is that a lot of people with the ENTJs or ESTJs, I'm seeing a lot of you guys actually know your FI, even if it's feminine. It's just you're super scared and like protective of it, and like you don't want to hear it, but it's there. So that's what I've been seeing consistently. I actually noticed that it's harder for people with the TI last to understand. They have it like
because they're obligated to the social value game, whereas I'm like, nah, I like what I like. Too bad.
Yeah, maybe with FI it's a little bit easier, maybe than the TI, feminine TI. That's a tough one,
That's tough.
Yeah. So you have double activated play. So like, do you love like just always like hanging with people and like doing stuff there and stuff like you're always a friend that's like that's always gonna be there for you, like.
Oh yeah, like I realize like I've had to expend a certain amount of energy in order for me to actually get like the quote unquote sleep last crash or the sleep crash or whatever it is. Like I used to run like 4 to 5 miles a day just to make sure if I wasn't talking to people, I'd have to run for a crazy amount of time, like 4 to 5 miles in like an hour or hour and a half just to get all that energy out. Or I have to talk to people constantly, or I'm need to be around people. And like I realized like, oh my goodness, I have to expend like, even though I'm exhausted by the end of the day, but it's like I know like I'm like, because I've been described my whole life as like an energizer bunny. Like even as a kid, I've had old babysitters be like, you wore me out. Like you were go, go, go all the time. You never sat still. You were always on your feet.
Do you have like a sleep? Did you have like a
Life.
savior babysitter?
I've been with them my whole life. It's really funny. I'm dating somebody who's actually lead sleep, I believe, a blast last IJ.
Oh, really?
Just
Did he get type?
he didn't get officially typed, but he knows a little bit about OP because I told him about it. He always describes it as the like, oh, is this the I'm the butterfly group? I'm like, yeah, it's that group.
Well, it would make sense if you dated a sleep first person, because that seems to be the norm. Like my girlfriends sleep first, so it's
No, I looked at your girlfriend's type. I'm like, I think my boyfriend might be the same type as your girlfriend, which is very funny. I was like, no way. I'm like, oh, they do some similar things where it's like, I hear about all the things he wants to control afterward because I'm in his box so I can hear about it. But will he tell anyone else about it? No.
Yeah, my girlfriend does the same thing. It's like she only tells me what's in there, like no one else. And
Yes, exactly. It's like I'll find out about it. It's like they should have done this. They should have organized it like that. I'm like, why don't you tell him that? He's like, that's just rude to say. or the like communication, especially with my sensory versus his sensory. It was always like, read my mind. And I'm like, I can't read your mind. He's like, well, I said it in my head. I'm like, because you said it in your head, you didn't say it out loud. How am I supposed to know?
maybe your boyfriend's an IP, like a controlling IP. It sounds like from your description that it's like a.
Yeah, I thought he was some like IPIJ hybrid or some IJ.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it sounds like
Over there, like definitely that side.
right. That's what it sounds like from your description. I'm like, that sounds like an IPIJ, not like a consumer IJ, but like an IP.
No.
Okay, so here's what's interesting about you. You have double activated NE. So
Yes.
like are you chaotic then? And like do you channel change too and stuff? And
Yes, I've heard of it. I'm like a channel changing chapter talker where it's like once I get everything
weird.
out of the chapter, I'm like, all right, time to change the channel.
Yeah.
Because like I recently had a quint review with Katie, Charlie, Heather, and Benjamin, and all 4 of us were TESI.
Right.
So all of them were doubling up on OI except for me.
I see.
And it was very interesting hearing them talk versus how I talk, because I spike way more in terms of like energy just in conversation. Like they're much more like and I'm like
I because you're a chapter talking channel changer, so it's not like channel changing chapter talker. That's me.
Oh no, I'm not that. I don't change the channel first. Like I make sure everyone's on the same page. I'm like, all right, moving on, time to go over here. Wee.
Yeah, because like if you look at both our types, I'm play first, right? I'm not, but I have blast savior.
Right.
But, so for you, it's like chapter talk. So finish the chapter first, and then you channel change, finish, and it's really rapid fire too, like doom, right?
Because the blast play, it's like
right. But mine's play blast, so mine's like a little bit here, switch, a little bit here, switch, a little bit here, and then go back here again, and then go back.
Yes, that's the big thing I've noticed between like the play blast and the blast plays.
Right.
That are it's so interesting, especially when it's like an OE doubling up on OI versus me who's an OI doubling up on OE. Like it's so interesting because I recently talked, Anissa and I were talking about this a couple of days ago, and she's like, even though we have the same animal order, she's like, you are way more chaotic than me, because she's an IJ. So it was like I still have the, even though it's feminine and I for her, it's like I still have the main human need to organize, where it's like your main human need is masculine TE. So it's like you're going around like definitely more obligated to like be around the chaos all the time. And then having double activated NE in the middle, it's like you're very much like wee over here, woohoo. Like
I think
sound it makes.
It sounds like for you, you are prioritizing clarity. But for me, because I'm play first, I'm prioritizing the connections between
Yes.
the idea. So you do put the connections together
Mhm.
after you clarify it. So if they're still confused, then you kind of have that in your back pocket as
Yeah. Like
as
I very much a work hard first and play hard later.
yeah.
Where it's like I get the blast out first, and then it's like, okay, took everything I need to take care of, said what I needed to say, beat the heads enough. All right, let's have fun for the rest of the day. Woohoo! Like,
Right. Time for a night out or something.
yeah, I'm skibby most of the day.
Your double feminine consume is NF. So how do you experience that NF side to you? Like, NF is all about like what's the point? What do you like what matters to you in the abstract world? So how do you like what matters to you in the abstract world? Let's start with that and then move on.
For the longest time, I had a very tough time putting into words what double feminine N of consume is, because N of consume itself is difficult to explain. Add double feminine on top of that and have it be super movable. It's like, what am I even grabbing at? But it's,
Right.
I realized it's just abstract things that I personally like, not abstract things that I need to block bang and figure out and solve. It's not like we need to figure out this lore information and we need to bang on the heads of what could have happened here, what could have happened here, or why did this happen, why did this happen. That it's NF is much more like, okay, so there's this thing, I'm feeling this thing. How do I feel about it? What are the vibe that I get about it? Like kind of trying to trust my gut a little bit more of being like, I know my gut's super movable, but it's trying to say something, but it may not say it the best. It probably is kind of sloppy, a little bit all over the place, but trying to really follow my gut a little bit more is the best way I can explain it. I still don't know how to explain it right.
Well, you kind of did. You had some hints. So earlier when you used the word lore, that was a really good word. I like that one a lot because I noticed that people with NF consume they love fantasy,
Yes,
like absolutely love like the fantasy world. Like Lord of the Rings or
yes.
like do you love that kind of stuff, Lord of the Rings and all that stuff, like Disney
I'm
film?
not I mean, I like Lord of the Rings. It's not the fan. I'm not the biggest fan of Lord of the Rings, but I love like Dungeons and Dragons, World
Right.
of Warcraft. I love Star Wars. Don't even get me started. Like,
Yeah.
love that. Like, I love fantasy and sci-fi and all the.
Like
I love,
the make believe world, right? You like that,
yes,
right?
I love the stories behind the characters and really getting to know somebody's motivations and why they do the things they do, and if they made different choices, how would the world look, and like it's so interesting
So
to think about.
so after you watch all that stuff, do you go to like Wikipedia or Wikia and then like read about the lore behind those characters too?
Either that or I like listen to like 2-3 hour lore videos just on a single event in some
Yeah.
kind of abstract history.
Yeah. Okay. I can definitely relate to that. The funny thing is that even the ISTJs who has that NF blast usually they get sucked into that stuff too. Which I
Oh
find so
yeah, and I consume get sucked into being like,
yeah, no, because ISTJs have consumed last, right? But then when the fantasy stuff comes in, they're like sucked in all of a sudden.
oh yeah. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
imagine if it's like double masculine consume, you feel like a bit more in control of like not getting so whooshed wooed by the lore. You're like, oh yeah, like this is what I like, this is what I grab
yeah.
onto, this is the vibe of this is lore. I'm like, oh, the history and this character did this, and oh my goodness, what do you think it look like? It's very much a woo, like I can't even describe it. Like it's so differently when I talk about blast and when I talk about consume. Like I really realize like how differently I sound. If it's like ST, it's like
Yeah.
I talk like this, I say things like this, like this. Like I use a lot of like pointed hand motions and kind of punchy kind of symbols. But with double feminine consume, I'm like, woo, like it's I have the feminine hands and the whooshing and like my voice goes up and I'm like, ah.
Well, I understand exactly what you're saying because we're speaking the same language here. Like we
Oh,
both
sure.
function, but yeah, it's definitely hard to explain to people who don't have a NF consume what it is.
It's so hard to explain to people. You just kind of like I don't have to explain it to people who have NF consume because I'm like, you feel the whoosh, right? And they're like, yeah, I'm one with the whooshing. And then everyone's like, what are you talking about? And we're like, feel the vibe, man. Like,
You know, like in a more serious note though, I do think NF consume is super important because
Oh, it is.
like like a lot of EJs and IJs have this has this kind of like problem where they kind of just go along with what the tribe wants, and then when they get to their 40s and 50s they realize, oh my god, I never wanted to do that. This is not even the job I want. I climbed the wrong corporate building, you know, like this is not the building I wanted to climb. So you know, NF is all about like understanding, okay, what matters to me the most, where do I want to be in the future, and you know, where is my, like, what are my passions, my dreams, and is this the area where I want to experience growth. And like a lot of people that has NF last, you know, will usually just forego that altogether. And you know, like I said, you get to your 40s and 50s, let's say you're working in as an accountant, and you get to the top, you're now like, I don't know, the VP of this accounting firm, and you're like, oh shit, I hate my life, I hate myself, I hate my life, you know. Have you ever experienced that? I mean, you do have NF third, so it's there. You're kind of like me. We have the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Although yours is more in the bottom of the stack, mine's higher up. So, I mean, my blast is not. I have blast savior, but I notice it's still not that good because it's like the last four, the third and fourth function, right?
Right.
But I have access to it and I can use it. So, my question to you is that with that NF consume, looking at your career choices and aspirations, um, how difficult is it for you to kind of determine, okay, this is what I really want in the future. So what I'm doing right now with my ST blocks, am I climbing towards that, or have you completely forego that and just went the route where the tribe kind of drag you to?
Oh yeah, it's very funny you mentioned that because I had that exact same experience a year, like last year, like exactly around this time. So for the longest time, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought I was going to go to law school. Like I tried to aim to go to one of the top 20 law schools in the world. I got into college. I was a legal studies double major because that's what I thought I wanted to do. I'm like, well, because I was like, I want to help people. I want to advocate for people. I want to fight for people. Like I want to, you know, really represent people. And then like I had this sort of really dark depression where I just kind of everything around me kind of collapsed, and I was at the state where I had to take a semester off of college and really figure out like, what do I want? Like, what do I want to be? Like, I know I want to help people, but I don't really like as much as argumentative as I am. It's like I don't want to argue like all day because I argue enough in my life, and I don't only want to tell one side of the story. I want to tell every side of the story, but I want to help people, but people sometimes are too emotional for me. So I asked my dad, who's been a software engineer for nearly 30 years, I'm like, what sort of careers are geared toward helping people, but work more so with numbers? Because what I've always loved was numbers. I've always loved math. I used to lie in middle school and say I loved English, hated English. Because everyone else in my circle is like, oh, I love, because I felt that pressure to be like, oh yeah, I hate math, I love English. Fuck that. I hated English.
Yeah.
Hated it. I thought there was too many rules. I thought the words, I'm like, okay, why is this word now like this and this word like that? Makes no sense. Why? Like I always found it too restrictive. I've always found like all that. I love math because I'm like, there's multiple ways to get a right answer, but there is some kind of answer. Like that much I loved about it. I love numbers. So my dad told me about this field in engineering called data analytics. And what it is essentially, it combines computer science and statistics into one sort of thing. And it's creating visuals or graphs or data tables and then translating that information to people to help others make the best informed decisions for themselves, their business, their companies, or whoever they're addressing it to. And I looked into it and I'm like, this sounds like something I want to do. And I've been taking classes for the past 2 semesters and I'm really loving it. Like it is right up my alley. I love because I get to tell every side of the story and I get to tell the beginning and middle and end, and I get to leave it kind of open ended and sort of say, look, the numbers don't lie. The only reason why the numbers may lie is because people are lying about them.
Right. That makes sense. um, so I really like that story because you've taken a step back to kind of you know, pick the right path that you know makes more sense for you and more enjoyable for you. So Kim, I have two last questions for you, and then we'll wrap up the interview.
Of course.
First one is there's a saying that I've noticed that I think really relates to the EJ types. So from my perspective, you can't give what you don't have. And if you don't have self-love, then you can't love other people.
Absolutely.
So how do you relate with that statement personally, since you are that EJ type?
I've definitely had to learn that over the years. It's been a lesson that's taking me. I'm still trying to figure that out, that it's you can't help anyone until you help yourself first, and really learning words are just words if there's no action behind it. I can't preach what it means to have confidence in yourself when I don't have any confidence in myself. I like the thing is, people believe me when I talk about things that deal with ST because I know about that. But I need to translate that same love and passion and dedication and responsibility to the ST, to the NF, and being like, listen, like, when I talk to someone about trying to build their confidence, trying to figure out who they are, working on telling themselves that they're good enough and that they don't need an empty bucket, I don't want it just to be words and not much growth behind it. And that's sort of where their toughness comes from on people. If they're like, why are you being so tough? It's because I've been you before. And I want you to be better than me. I don't want you to be me. I want you to be better than me. I don't just want you to love other people. I want you to love yourself as much as, if not more than other people, because you have to love yourself. Like, absolutely. Like the self-love's been the discovery, which is just kind of funny about myself, because it's like your masculinity, like you're bang blocks all the time. You're double observer, so you don't miss the observation. You're very balanced in the middle, so you can go back on S&N very easily. And then the thing you discover about yourself is, I have feelings and I have value and I have an identity.
That's really good. I like that. And last question is, how do you experience, the kinesthetic and audio sexual modalities? Like, are you good with like exercise or sports or movement, and also with music and, having an ear for sound?
I wouldn't call myself a good dancer. I would just say I'm a very aggressive type of dancer. Like when nightclubs and stuff were open, I'd be the person trying to drag everybody in the middle. I'd always want to be in the middle of the circle. I'd always hype everybody up around me. I'd try to get the energy up and be like, woohoo, woohoo, woohoo. Like, I'd end up, like, my friends would joke with me saying, how many friends are you going to make tonight? How many people are you just going to like meet and talk to and get along with and whatnot? So that would be the running joke. In terms of anything not dance, I've been told I have perfect pitch. So it's like you hear a note and within like seconds you're able to identify, oh, it's this note, it's that note. And it's part of it. I've trained my ear to sort of be able to pick up on things. Like, I'll hear a noise in the elevator and be like, oh, it's in that note. Or I'll hear two notes and be like, oh, add this note and it's in this key. And people are like, how do you know that? I'm like, I've studied it. Like, it's very much like I've realized that, like, I've learned the best by doing. Like,
Right.
I can't just listen to something and be able to do it because it's like I need that visual to see it. I can't just look at something and know what to do because I need to be able to hear it. And I can't just experience it. Like, I have to do it. I'm the best by learning by doing, and it's like I have to do the thing I want to learn, or I have to all that. So it's like very aggressive. I've been told I'm like a Viking at sports games, that I'll get very loud and like very like just, I don't even know. It's like this guttural kind of like, let's go, like all that stuff. And like, yeah, I can be very like kinesthetic and like the workout too, because apparently like I said this in my typing video. I'm like, oh, when I run, I kind of have my hands close to my face, so it looks like I'm kind of boxing somebody as I'm running and like blasting heavy metal on full volume. So I'm like, you see this like little girl being like, okay, I bet she's listening to something cutesy, and then you hear like thrash metal on, and I'm like, oh, I'm loving this.
Well, that makes sense too. What you said earlier about like learning by doing, because you have blast over consume, right? So
Oh
you
yeah.
blast, and then whenever there's something you can't do, you consume to fill the gaps.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, all right, Kim. That was an awesome interview. Thanks for coming out. And
Thank you for inviting me. This was fun.
yeah, for sure. So have a great.
I have been interviewed by the 4 horsemen of the OP apocalypse.
Who's the 4 horsemen?
Reggie, Gray, Benjamin, and you.
Oh, we're the 4 horsemen. That's funny. I didn't know that. That's interesting. All right. Well, take care and have a great night.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.